So we are back for Gladiator Diaries episode 8. A couple of housekeeping things before we dive into the actual episode. You can, of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, then we have the video on Spotify as well, so you can check it out on there, and there is no difference. And also follow us on Instagram, Gladiator Diaries, for updates and stuff like that on the podcast. But now that's out of the way, I'm going to hand over to you, Moddy, to introduce our guest for this episode, and kind of we can get started about how you guys have come to know each other and all of that stuff that we kind of spoke about at the end of last episode.
My guy. This is my guy. My freaking, my bro. My big bro. His name
Little Big Bro.
Yeah, little big bro. Little on the shortness, but big in the everything else. Do you know what I mean? The maturity far outweighs mine, that's for sure. I'm just a fucking silly little kid most of the time. Well, actually, so is he. But anyways. Yeah. So, I've known Paul, how long have I known?
19 years. Madness.
Absolute madness.
Long time.
One of my best friends, he's cornering me in Brazil to the victory.
No doubt.
Bringing out all the swords together out on the battlefield. So this is great. And the first time Pauly came to know about us, and it was mainly just finding out about my dad, or one of your friends trained with my dad.
Yeah.
I'll let you explain.
I'll tell you, right. So I always wanted to get into martial arts, had a passion for martial arts. Started doing I started doing judo when I was a kid, did some Thai boxing, and then one of my best mates started kickboxing with Gintas. Now, me and my best mate growing up, I would always be able to, if we do WWF style wrestling, I'd always be able to bully him. You know, I was better than him in most places when it came to messing around. One day, we're playing around and all of a sudden he kicks me in the head. I'm like, how the fuck did you do that? Next thing, or fast forward a bit of time, he won the Great British Kickboxing Championship when he was 15. And Mo's dad, Gintas, became this sought after legend. It was he's teaching all these skills. My mate, he was 15 and he was able to put out men in their 20s.
I mean, he would definitely give me a good knockabout as well. When I was
talking about, when we were kids, he was really good. So I heard about Gintas, met him when I was 16, and then from that point, just started training with him religiously. When I first met G, I said to him, look, surely it's too late for me to get into martial arts. I was thinking, am I even in a position where I could compete or take this to a higher level? And he said to me, not at all. You can get into this now. The sport was really, really young. I'd always found I sort of geared towards more a wrestling style with Gintas. So we started competing when I was 17, 18. But I met Mo literally as soon as I met Gintas. So imagine when I was 16, Mo would have been 10. Literally like a 10-year-old kid.
Little baby, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and at that point, already, Mo's skill set was standing out. So there was a couple of guys I was training with. Mo was the younger kid at the time. And that's how we met. So, through his dad when we were very young.
And I have to admit, Pauly's been one of the biggest supporters and closest friends of me and my family. Like I say, for the longest time. Anytime I've had any sort of adversity in my life or things not going great or whatever, like I said, few people were to believe in me the whole way through, through the whole journey, and Pauly is one of them. And this is another massive reason as well why he's coming to Brazil with me, just because the spirit and energy that he brings, the vibes, the techniques, even just a lot of the skill sets that, he's not in the main sort of MMA frame, but we can sit here and talk hours about techniques and stuff like this, and it's amazing. He's got really good insight. So that's your boy Pauly.
Definitely as well that the Gintas combat mindset.
100%. 100%.
I've only ever really trained with Gintas. He's been my sole coach. So throughout all the years of martial arts, being a fan of martial arts, I've always been very biased to our particular style, which I think Mo shows perfectly when he competes.
That's one of the main things I wanted to talk about, because I feel like we've got the kind of, I had your perspective on it, and then we got your dad's perspective on his own kind of teachings, and then to get Will's perspective, and so then Paul, to get your perspective on the way that you train, and the way that the system works and stuff. as somebody who you said, like, as soon as you met him, you were training and stuff like that and just dedicated. Like, how was that to go into something that, at least from the outside looking in, sounds, I mean, when Will Curry is talking about how intense it is, I'm like, Jesus, because that guy was like a physical specimen even before he was training.
Cool. Yeah. Well, look, firstly, with regards to the training, I mean, this is, again, I'm always going to be very biased to Gintas' system because it's the only martial arts system I've known. And again, you know, we used to have a full-time gym in Watford for a couple of years. So, you know, a lot of people started to get an idea of what we were doing. But to give you an idea, when I started competing, you know, on a Saturday, for example, me and my training partner at the time, we would get there 11 a.m., 3 hours of drills, then an hour sparring, then an hour strength and conditioning. I've seen Mo and Will train, and they have taken that to a whole new level. Do you know what I mean? As the game has evolved, you could call it the systems evolved, and very similar to how me and my training partner were back in the day, these boys are doing it now, but on a whole new level. I mean, I did a session with Gintas and Will Mo were training after me. They're doing 10 5-minute rounds of wrestling, and we're not talking like tit-tat, touch-up wrestling. Like, they're going hard, 10 5-minute rounds. You know, the room is full of sweat. It looks like somebody's gone in and just sprayed a hose in the room. And these boys are still fresh after 10 rounds. So it shows you the type of intensity that they're bringing to it.
I think there was a lot of, as I've probably mentioned before, it's a lot of almost like old school mixed with the new school, you know? Like, I feel like my dad has a lot of training methods that he's used from like back in the day when he used to train, and that now I feel like he's one of those coaches, along with my other coaches like at BSC as well. They're constantly trying to evolve, which is obviously why I've managed to get to a level and a skill set of where I am now, is just because they're always trying to innovate. You know, my dad, every time a new thing comes in, and he's always keen to and listening open for new ideas as well, but obviously mixing that and blending that with the old school style system as well. So you mix that in with the strength and conditioning, you know, the striking, the wrestling and everything like that. And that's why I'd say like our style is just very unique. And
100%.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, Pauly, believe it or not, you know, he competed at amateur, and he was about to go pro as well. And, you know, like, he was giving a lot of guys a really hard time, literally just learning all the stuff from my dad. So yeah, man, it's a crazy system, but it's one that will definitely be showcased on the world scene
100%
soon.
Another thing as well, Cole, like talking, because, you know, you're saying about like Mo and like the system, as good as it is, and as amazing as the training and the teaching is, Mo's mindset is something we've got to talk about for a second, right? So back in like 2006 or 2007, we used to go to amateur MMA tournaments. So I was doing the adults, I was like 18, Mo was like 12, and he was competing with like 15-year-olds, right? And obviously I'd only known Mo for a couple of years, and I'd always see him at the house, but I never really had like a one-on-one chat with him. And he's obviously a kid at this time. I'm a young adult teenager, he's a kid. So I said, Mo, like, how do you train? And at the time, he was doing martial arts and basketball. But, well, before I get up to go to school, or before school, I wake up at 5 in the morning and I start training. I was like, what do you mean? yeah, well, before school, I put weights on my feet and I try and slam dunk the hoop. Right, okay. And then I'll go to school and I'll practice basketball at lunch, right? And then after school, I'll train with Dad. And I was like, what else do you fucking do? That's it. All the kid did was train. This is at 12 years old. So I remember being like 18, 19 years old, however I was. And I was not blown, blown away how this 12-year-old kid had the work ethic that was better than me and anyone else that I knew at the time. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of it. And that's a big part of most success, why he's in the UFC. You know, they always say the obsession. This kid was obsessed with anything he had ever done. And I think that's another big thing which has taken him to this level.
Was that, like, I imagine that was insanely eye-opening for your own training, being like when you're competing at the same tournaments and you're like you said, this guy is like, I don't remember specifically how many years difference there is between you guys, but when you're watching 6 years difference,
which
and
when
you're
younger is quite big. Think about it, like,
yeah, for sure.
Put it this way, when I started to do full contact, I was like 19, 20. Mo was like 14, and his dad was like, okay, you got to do some sparring. And obviously now he's a foot taller than me. But at that time, I think he was starting to creep up above me. And even then, I mean, you know, when Mo was doing other sports as well as martial arts, you know, apart from my training partner at the time, no one in the gym, we were a very small group at the time, was really giving me too much difficulty. And then this 14-year-old kid comes and kicked me in the face. And I remember I was seeing stars. So, you know, absolutely, mate. From the beginning, Mo's mindset was for me the most unique, because I always knew he was going to be a skillful guy growing up. Like, Gintas is his dad. And, you know, you've had him on the podcast. You know, even Anderson Silva at his peak would have learned something from him. So it's no surprise how technically good he is. But I think the mindset is also what separated him then and now, because he's never changed that mindset.
Yeah, I get it. Slightly different thing, but I grew up in secondary school with a guy who's an amateur fighter now, and same kind of thing. His dad is his coach, and I remember, again, we weren't competing, and we were the same age, and but even just complaining about little life problems and stuff, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know, I had to get up at 5 to train before and then after," and I'd be like, "I'm complaining about having to do stupid little tasks whilst, you know, I've got to get home and do homework or whatever," and he's doing it in between training when he can get the time." So it puts things like that into perspective, and I imagine that, like, I know that you said that it was the first time that you kind of got to actually have just a conversation, but I imagine moments like that stick with you, because not only are you competing side by side as part of the same team, but it, like I said, it puts it into perspective where you're like, okay, I'd never really kind of looked at it in that way before.
Mate, I imagine as well, when you're 18, 19, you know, when I got into martial arts, we're at the age when, you know, you start going out drinking and having fun. And I was taking a slightly different route. Every Saturday I was training. But as I said, it was just that, I remember very specifically, we were in Crystal Palace and we were stretching, about to warm up. Mo was going first. And just when he said to me, yeah, I wake up at 5 a.m. and train. And I strap weights to my feet to try and slam dunk the hoop. I mean, that's the kind of shit that sticks.
I think as well, you know, I've got to give a hell of a lot of credit, obviously, to my dad. That's literally just the way I was brought up. I actually have one very vivid memory where I had a hernia operation. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I had a hernia operation ages ago, and I used to train all the time. And then and I was playing tennis at the time, and then I ended up being off school, and, you know, which was great for me at the time, because obviously as a kid, you just don't want to be at school, right? For like literally 6 weeks, they told me I had to be bedbound. And then I remember I literally just recovered, and I was really milking it, like bad. Like, I just got so lazy. Like, literally, it was a complete contrast to what, you know, Pauly's describing now. But that was actually the real moment where, so I remember I was just sitting in the sitting room, watching TV, just being a fat little slob. Do you know what I mean? Just like, I think I was like eating crisps or something and watching TV, and my dad comes in the room and had the biggest go at me. He's like, "Modestas, what the fuck is wrong with you?" like seriously, he was basically telling me, like, "You want to be a fucking, like, one of the top tennis players in the world, and you're sitting here bloody eating crisps? Like, this is disgusting. What the hell is wrong with you?" I swear to God, I've never been so scared in my life. Like, even though, you know, obviously he's my dad and he cares about me, but at that moment I was like, oh my God. Like, literally, as soon as he said that, I went straight in the gym. And even when I went to train in the gym, when he told that to me, he was still looking at me disgusted. Like, he's like, "The only reason why you're training is because I told you to." He's like, "I need you to do this for yourself." And actually, it's mad how almost a bit of a traumatic moment in my life is actually what caused me to just want to have that work ethic and discipline. And that has transcended through, obviously, through all the training and all the people that has come under my dad, and including Pauly. I think that's just the mindset of training with us as a team and training with my dad, is that, you know, we want to do things. And he's almost like always looking for perfection, even though it's very hard to get there. Even if a little foot or a little toe is out of place, he wants to make sure that you get it 100% right. Otherwise, it's no good. And I think actually, it's very similar as well. I don't know if anyone's seen the Beckham documentary, but the relationship between father and son, always saying, that this ain't good enough, this ain't good enough. But to be honest, it always makes you want to push and strive for that perfection. So you're always trying to get yourself to the highest level. And that's literally just been his philosophy for years. And that's why technically I do believe Pauly, I don't know if you've ever seen a crescent kick that looks that beautiful. Honestly, I've got to show you a video. I did it in slow motion. I'm like, bro, how are you, like, he literally, it's like you're throwing a curveball in baseball, but he does it with his foot. I'm like, how is that even possible?
I mean, it's funny what Mo just said about like how Gintas was. So again, a different insight. So we had a fight coming up on the Saturday, and I was seeing Gintas Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. And I was training at the time, one of my training partners at the time called Josh, who was like a big guy. So we're doing rounds with Gintas. So one person hitting the bag, one person on the pads. Josh is on the pads, and I can hear Gintas, good, Joshy, good, like giving him a bit of praise. Then I came on. And this is like Gintas, old school Gintas. And he basically kicked the shit out of me with these pads. And Gintas will remember this as well. And I remember it was like, because obviously he's so good at finessing. He'd be like, right hand up. But you'd throw the right hand, and before you can bring it back, his pad would be hitting you. And he was going, this is fucking shit. You're going to get knocked out. You're going to get knocked out this weekend if you fight like this. Like Mo said, looking for that perfection. I went home, looked in the mirror, cried, convinced I was going to get beat on Saturday. Went back to the gym the next day. Gintas was like, it was just wanted to make sure you were coming back. Because a lot of, if you would have quit and not come back to training, then you would have never won the fight. But the fact that you're here today, you're going to win the fight. And that was do you know what I mean? He would break you down to build you back up again. And like Mo said, having that adversity at the time, and someone you look up to, when you've got a coach, someone you look up to, someone who's like a big brother or father figure or whatever, you're always eager for that praise. And that's why most coaches, and this is like another thing, just talking about like Mo and his training, you'll see so many, and I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking saying it's not a thing, but so many coaches hold pads. Excellent, amazing, yes, great. Gintas won't say that. He will only tell you when you're doing it wrong. So I'll be like, Gintas, did I do good? Did I say anything? No, it means you did good.
That's always what you'd say, isn't it? If I didn't say anything, that means it's smooth sailing.
Yeah, I can picture it so well. That must have been an interesting thing to see. I don't imagine he would have been too different on you guys versus coaching his own son, because I just from the very little stories that I have heard about Gintas. But how was that for you, Pauly, being in the gym and being like there's a joke that always gets thrown around with my generation about when you have kids, you got to get them into football straight away because it's Project Mbappe. You got to start them young, otherwise they're never going to reach the PSG level. Like for you, seeing Mo grow up in that kind of world, and then I suppose it comes back round to the training thing at 5 a.m. where you're like, I'm the one who's competing, I've been doing it for years, and yet I'm not doing that. And so it's like,
100%.
What am I doing wrong that he's doing right?
100%. I mean, again, going back to it all, he definitely wouldn't treat me or my training partner or anyone in the gym differently to how he was teaching his kids. Like, no way. Like, if anything, he was always more lenient and laxed with the people that you knew were doing it more for enjoyment and for just general self-defense skill and like a hobby. Mm-hmm. So those were the people that wouldn't get criticized as much. If you said to Gintas, I wanna do this properly, like I want to be a fighter, that is when you knew, like, if I see somebody, when we had the gym in Watford, if somebody came and said, I want to compete, I was like, you just said that to the boss? You're not going to like him for a little bit.
Get ready for
it. Exactly. Win by knockout, and he might, give you a pat on the back, or, do you know what I mean? So 100%, man. Like, he would never not treat one of his athletes the same as he teaches his kids. And I think that's what's so good about Mo and G. That there's such, a lot of father and sons don't have that unique bond. Like when if you're talking about running a business together, effectively that is what they're doing. They're running a business. they're striving to be the best in the world in mixed martial arts. But, you know, if you look at them outside of the gym and in the gym, you wouldn't know they're father and son. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he will criticize Mo more or as much as anyone else then, just because he's his son. He's not getting an easy ride.
Do you know what? It's mad actually as well, because when I was 11, 12, I was pursuing basketball. So I just remember, like, you know, obviously I was kind of taking a back seat from martial arts. I was still competing. Whenever I wanted to compete, obviously I was back, obviously training and trying to improve my skill set and stuff like this. But I would see, I remember we'd always go on a Saturday after all the training was finished. I'm talking, this is like a 3-hour session for these guys. We all go like eat a burger at the steak joint, just literally just around the corner from our house, and you just see like heaps of sweat. You hear loads of shouting. You'd see these guys like come out of there like literally like their bodies are like completely broken, and I'm just sitting there just like absolutely amazed. Do you know what I mean? Because like obviously like I say, I was, my mindset was completely on another sport, so I was putting the same energy that. I remember there were times when they were training inside doing their martial arts. I'll be outside bouncing the basketball. I'll be like, you know, shooting hoops outside and trying to improve my skill set. It was almost like very motivating to hear all the noises going on from inside, like of men just groaning.
I'd be like, is Mo still playing basketball? I've been training for 4 hours, and they would come out, finish training, and Mo's still there.
It was there was a lot of camaraderie there, you know, like I say, just like for us as like a small team and a small group of friends just chilling. We'd always have a barbecue. It was like a family thing. Do you know what I mean? That was our reward at the end of the week, to go and have a burger. Do you know what I mean? At the place down the road. But like I say, I think that all together just it created a bond. You're going through suffering together almost, and I think me and Will have also mentioned that we're essentially just going through suffering together every time we're training. And that's what makes it even more fulfilling, I guess, because you know you're going to war with your brothers. So yeah, I think that's always been another philosophy with my dad, that the people that are in that circle are very close, and we live and die for each other. You know what I mean?
He actually used to say that. He used to say about the circle. He's in the circle. Those are the people you fucking die for.
Yeah,
and then it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
To go back to the basketball thing really quick, because throughout doing these episodes, you've mentioned like multiple sports that at one point you were doing. You said about tennis earlier. Was it a thing where it was like once you got to a certain age, your dad pushed you towards doing martial arts? Because I mean, hearing his story of how he got into it was crazy alone. But so I imagine there's part of him that would have wanted you to have carried on kind of what he had been teaching, but also I don't know, because some people are like, I did that so that you don't have to. Like his story of martial arts was crazy. So
I guess you hit the nail on the head there. It's like he did it so that I didn't have to do it. But it's mad because obviously he taught me so many skills from such a young age, and it's like I think for him maybe I don't 100% know, but you know maybe it was a bit of a shame for him. He's like, oh well, you know. From one side, he was probably like, I wish he would carry on, but from the other side, he's like, but bloody hell, he's talented in these other sports, so let him go ahead and you know, like really get his feet stuck in and try something different, because you know, look, whenever he sees talent in me, he really pushes me to do whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I think that's what actually makes our relationship so good now, is that he actually did give me the freedom of choice. You know, when I finished high school at 18, I didn't have any basketball scholarship offers on the table. I had some scouting me here and there, but nothing, you know, solid. You know, the question was, what do you want to do now? And it's like, I could have easily said to dad, listen, mate, I think I'm just going to go to university. I'm going to get my degree, you know, and then who knows? You know what I mean? I'm going to stay with my missus, and we're just going to have a nice, happy family in Louisiana. Do you know what I mean? I could have easily said that, but I remember always the conversations that we would have. It's like, it was almost like maybe instilled in me from probably my dad that I had to do something to be the best at something. Do you know what I mean? Because he was always training me to be the best at something. So for me, like I wanted to be a professional athlete, because I remember it was like racing driver at one point when you're younger and this and that. But then I actually thought, hold on a minute, like I was pursuing tennis to be a professional tennis player. I was pursuing basketball to be a professional basketball player. So I'm talking, I want to be the cream of the crop at whatever chosen sport I do. They didn't work out, but where did I have all my success? I'll be going to basketball games and bringing back trophies in kickboxing. Do you know what I mean? So then we kept on having that conversation over and over and over and over again whilst I was out in America. And he said, look, you can either go to university or you can come back, start working and start your MMA journey again. And for me, like I say, I want to be the best at something. So that was kind of like, I guess you could say, my last resort, my last option, but it's been something I've been doing since I was a kid. So it really did make sense.
It was destiny.
It was, yeah.
It was just destiny, man. Like, you know, again, from seeing Mo when he was young, doing the kickboxing competitions, the MMA competitions, when he was 16, he went off to America to pursue basketball. That's when me and my training partner, we used to really dive deep into the Gintas combat madness. And then when Mo came back, it was like he'd been with us the whole time. We had the gym in Watford. I remember Mo came back and it was like, bang, day one, he was in sparring. And I think, I don't want to be mistaken, but it was definitely no more than a year till he started competing. And he hasn't stopped since. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I think trying these other sports for Mo gave him an insight into other aspects of athleticism. But, and I might be wrong, but this is what, you know, as I said, it's destined. It's in his blood. His dad is who he is. You are who you are. And the only outcome for me is to become the UFC light heavyweight champion. Like, it's written, you know? Because as he said, he could have said, I've tried these sports. I did martial arts growing up. It's very tempting for a lot of people to not go down that career path. But Mo didn't look at any other avenue. It was the only option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mo's mentioned it briefly to me before when we spoke about doing this episode, Pauly, about the career that you've gone into and how successful you've been in doing that. I know that you said that when you first got into training that it was quite late and you thought maybe it was too late. Was there ever a stage where you thought, like, maybe I could commit more time to this and do it as something more than...
100%. My goal at one stage was to be where Mo is today. 100%. I've run a business since I was 19 years old, and that was something I always did alongside martial arts. But then when I started like competing at like a semi-pro level, that would overtake what I was doing. So I run a finance company. I had 15 employees in the office, and for the week before the fight, I was out of the office. And then it got to a point where 2 weeks before the fight, every lunch break, I was leaving to train for an hour, come back, and then train after work. I was properly obsessed with martial arts, and Gintas wouldn't have allowed me to be, you know, have your foot in, half out. So I wouldn't say it was a matter of dedication, just things go differently for certain people. But I definitely get to live vicariously through this guy. Still, you know, I've been pre-COVID, obviously I couldn't go and support Mo in Vegas and stuff. As soon as they opened up the borders, mate, I was at the last fight, literally in the Apex, standing by the cage like a fucking lunatic. And I still get that feeling of because you got to remember when, you know, I was at Mo's first amateur fight, cornering him.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can look back through, you know, his first pro fight, I think it was his 5th or 6th pro fight. It didn't go our way that night. And obviously at the time, you're devastated. The whole team's devastated. And Mo had just come back from Albuquerque, training at Jackson Wink. He was taking on a guy, I think it was 15-2 at the time. Some people would have said, look, you're 4-0, and you're fighting a guy older, more experienced. But again, the mindset we had is we're good enough, we're going to beat him. And Mo could have beaten him that night. It's just things don't always go the way you want them to. But I remember there was actually like video footage of me saying it to him at the time, like as shit as this is, like you're 20 years old or 19 or 20 years old. People wouldn't be taking on these challenges at this point. And I've seen, you know, I've had other close friends who are professional MMA fighters. Things don't always go the way you want them to, but I said this is all going to be gearing up to what you're destined to be, and that's the best in the world. And I don't just say that, because, you know, I speak to people, they say, look, because you're fucking so close, because he's like family, because he's like your little brother, and Gintas is like a big brother figure to you, you're biased to only having that view. But trust me, Mo will be the best in the world. I believe he's there now. I just feel like the way the beginning of the UFC path happened wasn't necessarily the ideal way we want it to. But again, just like I said to him back then, everything's geared up and happened for a reason. And he's still shown, at best, 20% of what he's capable of. Trust me. And
do you know what? It's actually just this, even his mindset is what makes Pauly so successful. It's like you're teaching someone else things that you almost are trying to do yourself. As you can see, he's a freaking fighter through and through with everything, like even with in business. It's like mad. Like I'll be sitting there, because obviously with Pauly's job, like sometimes he has to like do stuff and blah blah blah. He's always like, sometimes he's up and sometimes he's down, but he's always, even when he's down, he's up. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, even when things aren't looking so good, he always keeps a positive mind frame. He always stays on this like sort of, this is the ultra ball right here. Do you know what I mean? And I've been so grateful and thankful that I've had someone like that within my team and in my close circle, because I remember that conversation vividly when I lost my first professional fight, and it was like done in like a couple of seconds, like literally like 12 seconds or something, 18 seconds, like, you know, by footlock. And this was against a much more experienced guy. I remember I had John Jones telling me, I said, should I take this fight? And he said, with the level, is it the smartest move? Probably not. But is it courageous? Yes. Do you have the skill set? Yes. As soon as he said that, I kind of thought, I've got to go and do it. That ended up being one of the best things that actually happened to me. And like I said, it was me sitting in the changing room crying with Pauly like on my shoulder, just like saying, like, you know, this isn't over. Just use this as fuel. Like, you know, you're gonna become so much better after this. And at the time, you're thinking, not to say like you kind of just brush everything off because you're like, oh, they're just trying to make me feel better. But in reality, those words probably rung true, and they're probably like almost implanted in your subconscious to make you to push you forward within your life. You know what I mean? And like I said, I think he wouldn't be so like the passion and all of this kind of stuff. Like I say, with his own work and stuff like that, he brings that into all areas of his life. So, and that's what makes Pauly so successful, and that's why I believe everyone who are successful always stick together, because they have that same, you know, they keep circulating the same bits of, you know, mind frame, I guess.
I appreciate that. And another thing, Carl, as well, is look, if you're a good friend to someone, there's no point just blowing smoke up someone's ass and being a yes man, because that isn't being a good friend. Do you know what I mean? So if you can see that somebody's giving it absolutely everything, but some people just don't have, I don't want to say what it takes, but some people can be missing something. Some people have good skill. Some people have a great mindset and are hard workers. Some people have it all. And then on the day they're still not able to catch something. So it wasn't me just like giving a motivational speech. Like, and this isn't like me just to come here and praise Mo. Because as I said, like, you know, a criticism would be knowing how good he is, and like people that he trains with will know how good he is. But I feel like the world truly don't know how fucking dangerous this guy is, you know? Because I've seen, you know, I've been like you, like a martial arts addict, like, you know, up every fight, watching every fight. And like when I see like Jamal Hill, these top guys, and I'm thinking, I know Mo on a good day can smoke these guys. And that's why the next step now is going to Brazil. If he brings up 50% of his capability on the day, he's going to viciously beat this guy with beautiful violence, guaranteed. But again, it's very easy from the corner or from a friend to say, to say that. Do you know what I mean? Like, how many times do you see a fight fan, oh, you know, you should do this, you should do that, you see it in football. Fucking step in there and see what it's like. You know? The worst thing is a critique, especially in martial arts, because it's not like a football game where there's so many different things happening, so many different things to play. In fighting, yeah, you've got your team, you've got your corner, but when you step in, you're the only person that is in control, but it's a lot different when you're in there than it is on the outside. You know, so I'm never going to critique any fighter's decision in the fight because that's irrelevant. Because in the fight, there's, you know, a million and one things going on in somebody's mind. But to bring out your potential is what is important. And even though Mo's in the UFC, he's now won 4 fights in a row since he's been back. Trust me, not even got close to the tip of the iceberg yet. And we're going to see it in fucking Brazil.
Hell fucking yeah. You talk about Will being my hype man. We got another hype man right here, do you know what I mean? Giving him a run.
There you go.
Between the both of us, there's no fucking stopping the guy.
God, I feel like having you and Will in the corner would be too much almost. It'd be like we're gonna keep a lid on it to some extent. You get too hyped, you'd end up being gassed by the time you get in the cage. You know what? You mentioned that first loss on your pro record. I've never noticed this through going through your record in the past. That is crazy that you were 4-0 fighting a guy who was 15-3. How did that even get put together? That's
so
crazy.
madly enough, I was supposed to fight Michael Shipman, but you know, him and this guy were both part of the same team, so maybe there was some trickery going on, or who knows, or, you know, whatever injuries, I get it, it's part of the sport. But, you know, his teammate stepped in, who's obviously way more experienced, you know, fought on massive shows before and stuff like this. And like I say, it was my call. It was like, literally, do you want to take this fight or not? And it was like my first pro title opportunity. I was 22 at the time. I was like a proper young buck in the game. You know what I mean? And because of the training that I'd done, I did have a lot of confidence. Like, I had a lot of confidence sparring with the greatest of all time, like literally every single day, him giving me praise. And, you know, I understand there's one thing in the training room and another thing, obviously, in the fight. But I learned so many lessons, and I had all these like coaches and all these people, like, just, I don't know, like, giving me praise about my skill set, and they'll tell me what things I needed to improve on and this and that. And I felt like I improved quite a lot. I think maybe I lost a little bit of the Gintas combat style when I did go out there, just because of, you know, I wasn't around with my dad the whole time. But I think one thing that I wasn't mature enough in yet was the mindset. I think I wasn't ready to compete in such a big. It was like my first main event as well. And it was a big show. There's a lot of people. I brought everyone down. I literally told everyone to buy tickets and this and that. And although I had confidence on the outside, I almost felt like, looking back on it now, it might have even just been a little bit of bravado. It wasn't even like, you know, even real, like, actual confidence, you know, because when I was getting ready from the changing room to the cage, something just felt a little bit, you know, a little bit off, a little bit weird, you know. I think maybe a bit of fear set in, and stuff like this. And it's like, you know, I was just a young boy almost. So it's like that young boy trying to step up and do the big boy job, you know. And it was a very difficult. Once I got into the fight, I was like, okay, cool, like we're here now. But then obviously, technically, I couldn't make the decision needed quickly enough to stop the other guy's submission. So he used his experience. You know, he obviously used his skill set and his power and stuff like that against me. And yeah, it was a very hurtful loss. That was one of the times where I really experienced what people are really like, and that, you know, the people who love you are the people that love you and that really are like around you. That was one of the first experiences. It's mad because after that fight, I ended up signing with Cage Warriors, and then my first fight with Cage Warriors, I ended up losing again, just getting caught with just like a punch out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Like winning the fight and then get caught with a punch, this fight game. But I really do think that all of these things that that have happened to me, like bad, were all just lessons, and it was all part of the bigger picture. So like I say, Pauly was always right in saying that it was all part of the bigger picture. You don't want to even think about it. You don't want to, you're humiliated. You know what I mean? You're literally at the lowest of the low. With the highest of the highs come the lowest of the lows. And then I had to recreate myself after those 2 losses. But that's inevitably what has caused me to become who I am today. Even just those 2 losses. Then obviously in the UFC, again, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this, but I feel like everything's like gone round in a circle. Like I lost 2 fights in a row on a smaller scale. Then I went on a massive win streak. Then I lost a couple of fights on a much larger scale with even more people watching. And now again, I've managed to come back and get back on a winning streak. So these have all just built me, you know what I mean? And like I say, one person without a doubt that has never, kind of shown any sort of doubt, whatever, in any of my skill sets to anyone that he's talking to has been Pauly. And maybe that's also a tribute to us just being around each other from like a very young age. Because like I said, if Pauly thought I wasn't really meant to do this, he'd probably tell me so.
That's it, man. Like, look, I mean, even when I started my business, so I think it must have been before Mo went to America. Mo would have been, I think, 16 at the time. I got Mo had to do work experience for his school, so he came into my office.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was like, mate, you've actually got a knack for this. You're young, like you could come in and grow within this. But I was like, you're going to go off and do basketball. Now, when he came back, like I said to you before, without repeating myself, if I thought, look, come on, like, in my job, if you work very hard and, like anything, good fortune meets opportunity, you can get nicely rewarded financially or, good financial rewards. And, that's a lot of the time what people are working for. But like I said, man, I would have never have said to him it's not, you can still motivate somebody and tell them to go down a different path, Like when you truly care about someone, remember, this is a fight business. He's not fucking out there playing golf where he's going to hurt his back. Yeah, we've seen what can happen at the highest level of mixed martial arts against these killers who are all trying to achieve the same goal. So when you care about someone, you would tell them the truth. But I just knew, and like I just said before, without going into a circle, like it's destined to be. I've trained with some amazing people. My training partner growing up is an incredible martial artist. And from seeing those kind of people and seeing Mo's skill set and his mindset, the only fucking way for us to go is to the top. And that's what I'm saying, not even the tip of the iceberg. So when we go to Brazil in 3 weeks' time, I'm expecting, like I remember before the Chuck Harris fight, I was like, Mo, and he shot, like, at that point, you got to see someone going backwards can get put to sleep out cold with the right hand going backwards, which is very rare in fighting, in boxing, and anything. It's normally when it meets, a good knockout comes, not when someone's going backwards. Even that is just showing a small little snippet. So if he does what he's supposed to, it's going to be a great day for us and a bad day for Brazil.
I think I had my dad's words ringing through my hand. It's like, why is there no knockout with hands? Why there's no knockout with hands? Literally just going on repeat. I'm like, all right then, don't worry, Dad, I got you covered. You should see in the replays of that fight, actually, I just see my dad like in massive smile. He's like, like in slow motion. He's like frowning, and then next minute he's like this, like in slow motion. It's absolutely hilarious.
I wasn't in the corner, but obviously I was there live, like always. And when I saw him go down, I don't even remember who I was around. He's going, "What the fuck did I tell you? I told you this was gonna happen." I knew it.
The passion is there.
Trust me, Carl. I'm telling you, 3 weeks time. However it happens,
more happy times.
It's gonna be a very similar result.
I'm gonna clip all of these and put them all together for fight week. So if there's any point where you're like, I need to get amped up for this fight, just promos from Will, from Pauly, like you'll never need another hype video ever again.
Really, you've got to do it. All he has to do is make eye contact with his dad, and it's like telepathic. It's like, I know what I need to do, Dad. I know what I need to do.
I'm definitely gonna have a look back at that Chuck Campbell fight as well and see if I can find the slow-mo thing so I can clip that. That's definitely being done. As I mentioned to you before we started recording, it's been a crazy week for MMA. So we should briefly touch on a few of these things before we round out this episode. I think this is probably an episode's worth of discussion, so maybe we'll get into it when the changes actually get made. But on top of all the hectic news of yesterday, it was kind of just subtly dropped out there that USADA won't be working with the UFC come next year, which is a huge change for you. So to get your take on that, and like I said, I'm sure in the new year when it's actually a thing, we'll do a whole episode about it and stories about your experiences with USADA, because I remember you telling me one that was funny on its own. So
yeah, I mean, having a knock on the door at 7 a.m. So look, I'm really interested to see how the UFC is going to go forward with this, because ultimately you have to be in the USADA's drug test, unless it's a last minute call up to the UFC. If you get signed, you have to be in the USADA's drug testing pool for 6 months and have 2 clean tests. That is like a requisite. That is the standard at which they are setting everyone. It's mad. Just like looking at it from the outside, is that Conor McGregor has just entered the USADA testing pool, but he's supposed to fight in January. So obviously that's already a violation of USADA's drug testing protocols. Who knows if that may have had something to do with maybe not signing with them again, or maybe that the UFC has their own people and has their own particular, they have their own people that can do all that. Maybe they don't need USADA. Maybe there are UFC reps in each country that are able to do this random drug testing protocol. For me, it's a bit weird. I don't know how it's all going to work, because I have an app right now from USADA that I have to give my whereabouts. How's that going to happen now? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it going to be a similar protocol? Are they going to make an app that we have to tell where we are at all times? Or are we going to be told when we're getting tested? Or I have no idea how it's going to, or potentially everything could stay, like I said, everything could stay exactly the same, because they've still got the same people working, like UKAD, USADA, all of them are under the same sort of umbrella. So I'm very interested to see, because I just kind of don't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I thought it was already the news straight away is it's a massive hit. Like, oh my gosh, like there's no more drug testing. You see all these memes of like, do you know what I mean? It's like guys post USADA and all this kind of stuff. Like I saw Owen Elliott posted up a photo. He goes, all right, this is the shape I'm going to be in now. Like him just all like buffed up. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm just wondering how they're going to keep it going. But listen, it's the UFC. They're $1 billion company. I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to do it, because they found a lot of success, obviously, with it to keep the sport clean and to make it an even playing field for all the athletes. So it'll be interesting to see. I have no idea. Like literally, if you ask me now, I'm just wondering how everything's going to fall into place. But considering that, like I say, Dana White, where there's a will, there's a way. If it can cut back costs as well and stuff like this, who knows? Maybe it's actually going to be for the betterment of the UFC. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll check in with you.
So did you actually know why they've decided to end things with USADA? Like, what was the actual reasoning behind the UFC?
The reason that USADA gave was that they had a meeting and basically agreed to go separate ways. And it was like a strange, like USADA are a very professional company. And for the statement they put out was very like throwing shade. It specifically mentioned that they didn't want to do business with the UFC anymore because of the UFC's approach on bringing Conor McGregor back early, and USADA put in the statement
was that the catalyst then?
USADA put in the statement that they felt like they were trying to undo all of the good work that they had done over the years by saying like, we have rules, but on this occasion, we're not going to adhere to them. So it was a bold thing to come out and say that, like, hey, this is why. So
it was a massive surprise, I must say, because You know, everything seemed all handy dandy. You know, I literally had a drug test about a week ago. Guy came to my house and took my piss. Do you know what I mean? And next thing you know, now they're saying that, you know, USADA are out of the picture. But like I say, with $1 billion company, if they're able to grab an island during COVID, with the only company able to do something like that for a sporting event and lead and pave the way, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to have the appropriate things in place in order to keep this thing running.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? You just don't want to see that there's an angle for guys to start to give themselves that good juice, because it's almost like
secret juice.
Yeah, it's almost like a rite of passage. Before you get to the UFC, you've got to expect a lot of people to be doping. Not everyone, of course, but then when you get to the UFC, it's like, right, you know, you've cut yourself from the crop, so to speak, and everyone's clean.
Yeah.
So
the last point I'll make on this, that is a bit of like a weird thing, is that USADA's just now joined the PFL. So USADA and the PFL is going to be under the same, you know, bracket as the UFC has been, but now the UFC's just left it. It's just like, it's a massive mumble jumble, isn't it? Yeah. It's like, so the PFL is going to be under the same criteria as the UFC was, but, you know, like I say, time will tell. In January, I'm pretty sure we'll all know what the state of affairs is going to be in that area. But judging by, you know, I've even heard Brendan Fitzgerald saying, like, listen, the UFC know what they're doing. This is why I'm saying that point. If they look, they're $1 billion company, they know what they're doing. As I say, if they can cut back costs and still provide the same service, then business move, that's a very good move, you know?
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but I'm sure we'll dive deep into that at some point. A bit of historical significance with another bit of news that came out yesterday. We're getting Volkanovski Makhachev 2, which of course the first time they fought earlier this year is when you came back against Tyson Pedro. So it feels a little bit like you know, it's like a nice little bookmark chapter of you having the Brazil fight in a couple of weeks as well. Crazy couple of hours that was.
Yeah, I mean, it's just completely mad to have Oliveira just, you know, have to pull out because of that cut, and then it's mad that Volkanovski is able to take it on such short notice as well. But it was a very close first fight. You know, Volkanovski is obviously always staying in shape, so it'll be very interesting to see, because, you know, Volkanovski fight was on his home ground. Now, technically, I guess you could say it's on Makhachev's
he'll be the
home turf. So it was a very close first fight. So obviously it's very interesting for the second one, but 100% a fight that had to be made just because of how close the first fight was.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned very briefly Secret Juice, Paulo Costa being out of the fight as well, which I think maybe wasn't as surprising as Charles Oliveira being out of the fight.
He had an elbow infection.
Yeah, staph infection. They look pretty bad, to be fair, on the photos.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, the replacement fight, I have to admit, it probably worked out a little bit better, you know?
For a fan,
100%.
Yeah, I can't wait. That card looks like better than it already did. So good times. This is one that I don't know where you guys are going to land on this, but probably the most talked about fights coming up this weekend are happening in Manchester on the Misfits Dazn card.
We were literally just talking about that before the show.
I don't know whether you guys are leaning any particular way, where your interest is at for these two fights in particular, because these YouTube boxing events aren't going anywhere, and
I mean, they're very high level boxers, these guys.
We're talking about, you know,
yeah, I'm joking.
we got Volk Makhachev next week. We've got KSI Tommy Fury this week. You know, it's pound for pound.
They all go in the same bracket. You know what I
mean? Yeah. Where are you guys at with kind of interest in this event in particular?
It's a spectacle, but I mean, I don't know. Like Tommy Fury is a professional, like an actual professional boxer, and he's fighting KSI and Jake Paul. Like, as a professional boxer, I don't know. It's like, it seems like now they're all placed under the same umbrella. Now KSI is just a professional boxer. In all fairness, Jake Paul, I think, has done pretty well. But again, he's been fighting guys that he hasn't fought the top caliber guys like in the weight division. He's kind of, you know, it's entertaining for the fans. I think from an entertainment standpoint, of course, like everyone wants to see those fights. I mean, Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul is just an absolute like media, like kind of like one of the things that really like sort of draws people in. You've got Dylan Dennis talking about Logan Paul's fiance and stuff like this, and you know, it's all become a bit WWE.
I was just gonna say that's it. I took the words out of my mouth. I was a massive WWE fan growing up, and it's like a crossover between full contact sport and WWE. So for the entertainment value, I'll watch it.
But I think from the skill value, I mean, Dylan Dennis is known more as a grappler. Obviously, yeah, he sparred and trained with Alex Pereira and stuff like this. But then, you know, Logan Paul, his boxing skill is mad because he looks at his fight with Mayweather and like is commentating himself. Oh my God, look how sick that was. I'm like, bro, you look terrible. Like Mayweather was just toying with you, and he thinks he's like some giant.
And the size difference is like me and Mo.
Yeah, exactly. And
you know,
and he's like, oh yeah, I nearly got him. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, I have to give them all of them a lot of credit. They've managed to get themselves. That is a skill in itself, to get yourself out into the spotlight, to make people actually give a shit about you and want to be drawn in to watch you fight. They've done an absolutely amazing job. They are amazing salesmen and marketing geniuses. Do you know what I mean? To be able to get so many people to want. So from that, I really do admire them. I could learn a thing or two from them, and I really do look up to them in that sense. But from a skill set aspect, I mean, we are yet to see. You know, KSR probably looks like the strongest out of all of the YouTubers in terms of boxing style. But you know, if we're looking at it on paper, Tommy Fury should take that fight easily. And with Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul, you know, Dylan Dennis has been more of a grappler. He's only fought twice, I think, in MMA. Yeah. So that's not even his realm. And you know, Logan Paul's been training only. But when you got that much money, and all you do is just train all the time for one sport, you are going to get very quickly good at it. So it's just a spectacle. That I think we'll leave it at that. It's a spectacle. Fair enough. Everyone's going to be paying to watch it, and they're going to be making a hell of a load of money. So congrats to all of them, you know.
Yeah. Finally, I think this might end up going a bit under the radar because of this whole KSI and Dylan Dennis thing. But there's a Cage Warriors event this weekend, which we should super briefly touch on just so people know that it's happening. There's some good fights on it. But really the big kind of talking point was a couple of weeks ago when it was announced that Paul Hughes is going to be on the card, going up a weight class. We've spoken about Paul Hughes already and how, I mean, literally everyone is spoken about Paul Hughes and how he's not in the UFC at this point. So interesting to see him back in Cage Warriors and fighting again for them. And you would imagine a good performance, and surely then he will be off. But
yeah, I mean, like I say, who knows? I mean, who knows what the real criteria is for obviously getting signed to the UFC straight off the bat. You know, it might even end up that you have to go Contender Series or something like this. But yeah, obviously he's moved up a weight class, you know, with a big win here. Obviously, Jan, I can't even pronounce his second name, but you know, that guy is also very, very skillful, and he's going to be a bit bigger and a bit stronger. So you know, Paul's going to have to use his speed and you know, his tactical ability, you know, to take that fight. But yeah, I think for him with a win here, it's probably. But then at the same point, mate, I keep coming back to this. If Morgan Charrier has gotten signed by the UFC, both Paul Hughes and Jordan had beaten him, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, then surely those two have got to be in the running or in the name to be getting signed to the UFC next. Clearly, that the talent level, the skill level, they should be signed. Because I've seen Jordan in the gym, especially, like, you know, his level of his skill acumen is absolutely mad. Like, you know, he's got and, you know, obviously Paul Hughes at the same point. So, you know, I really do think those two definitely deserve their shot in the UFC. And yeah, like you said, Paul winning this fight, I think he definitely deserves his shot for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that just about wraps it up. So thank you to both of you for your time. And
Nice.
Good speaking to you, mate.
yeah, good to meet you. And
Nice to meet you too, brother.
I'll speak to you. Well, I'll probably speak to you both very soon because of the Brazil
Oh
fight
yeah,
coming up.
100%.
But
you're going to be hearing Paul's voice out in the corner. We're going to put the mic on Pauly for this next one. You know what I mean? Then you get all sorts of.
I've got a lot to live up to.
Absolutely. All right, cool. I'll catch you next week.
My man,
All right, man.
take care, my brother.
Brother.
All right,
See you soon.
thank you.
See you later.